Alright, new viewers and game viewers, it is time for yet another part to the Pokemon Black and White unused content videos, and today we're continuing with move data, maps, and some unused concept art for some characters. So why don't we start with the move data over here and begin, but before we truly begin looking at this content, I do game content like this all the time. If that's your type of thing, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's for free and you can always change your mind later on if you desire to. Anyways, looking at some of the information we have over here, a few links to some other things towards this. And we're going to see different names and different effects for certain moves that were introduced in Generation 5 that might have gotten changed later on. Starting off with Autotomize. Its final Japanese name being Bodhi Paji. Well, its Japanese beta name being Kiryoku, or Kiryoka. And then a lot of other different name changes here for Rage Powder, Telekinesis, Storm Throw, Flame Burst, Electro Ball, one of the worst Pokemon moves in my opinion. Acid Spray, one of the best Pokemon moves in my opinion, at least for racking up damage. Simple Beam. Clear Smog, Quick Guard, another pretty neat move. Reflect Type, Bestow, Secret Sword, Snarl, Fusion Flare, Fusion Bolt, and that's about it here for the different name changes. And just like the previous video, if you want to pause at any point in time to read some of these names, then go on ahead and do that if you'd like. I want to talk about Acid Spray for a second over here. Its beta Japanese name being Ashido Bomu. The Sakuo Sokomon is placed differently than final. And then the final game, Ashido Bomu. I guess that's just some Japanese related things with the Japanese language that I'm unfamiliar with. Alright, so here's the more interesting part of this. Certain moves having different effects in the beta version before being changed for the final game. Artifact changes. With Glaciate and Fiery Dance. Glaciate initially lowered the target speed by 2 stages instead of 1. In the final game, it only differs from Icy Wind by 10% additional base power and 5 fewer base power PP or power points. And as for Fiery Dance, used to have a 70% chance to raise the user's special attack, which is the same likelihood as the less powerful and accurate Charge Beam. And then 4 generations later, they make Torque Shong. What's your point? But anyways, Glaciate, in my opinion, they honestly should have kept it lowering your speed by 2 stages. I feel like that would have definitely given Kyurem, at least in its base form, before its fusion forms in the sequel, some more usage over it just being a slightly stronger Icy Wind. With a bit more accuracy and less power points, that's it. It's just a slightly stronger Icy Wind, essentially, that's it. It should have lowered speed by 2 stages. That would have actually been really busted in doubles. But alas, we just got a slightly stronger Icy Wind at the end of the day. And Fiery Dance, they really should. Maybe, 50% chance to raise special attack is still pretty damn high. It's basically a coin flip. But 70% chance I think would have been more useful. And then again, 4 generations later, they make Torque Shong, which raises your special attack by 1 stage 100% of the time. Wouldn't be surprised if in Generation 10 at the time you're making this video. Generation 10 ain't out yet. Hell, Legends A isn't out yet at the time you're making this video. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move that raises your special attack by 2 stages every time you use it. Who knows? That might happen someday, you don't know. But anyway, some other changes. Psyshock being boosted to base 80 power instead of base 70 power. Alright, nice that they did that. Venoshock having base 65 power instead of base 60 power. And as for its secondary effect, that means where it does double damage to Pokemon that are already poisoned, that means it would have done 120 damage instead of 130. So I'm glad they changed that as well. Storm Throw being changed to 40 base power instead of 50 base power, which, if I remember correctly, that was the move that always crit, right? But I had negative priority because of it? No, not negative. No. I think it was the one that always crit. The one that had negative priority, I believe, was Circle Throw? Or was that Vital Throw? Yeah, no, Vital Throw had the negative priority, but it never missed in exchange, which is kind of dumb, but whatever, especially with how underpowered that move is. Foul Play being changed to base 95 power, which I think works really well, since Foul Play is one of the few decently powered Dark-type moves that we have. That's under base 100 power, of course. And that'll become relevant later on when I play the Generation 7 games on the channel. I'm definitely going to bring that up at some point. But for now, base 95 power for Foul Play, which is, I think, a good choice. After you, initially had 5 priority. God damn. I'm kind of glad they changed that. Imagine, like, a really fast Pokemon using this, then after you, plus 5 priority onto a really slow Pokemon, like, say, Torkoal, for example. I mean, Chlorophyll with that was already extremely dangerous. In that, with the, say, Chlorophyll Lilligant, for example, was already really dangerous with that. Imagine if you didn't need the sun in order to do that. And with another Pokemon, like, say you did that with, like, a really slow Kyogre in the rain or something instead. Plus 5 priority, just instantly get those water spouts off. I'm so glad they changed that. Even from +1 priority, that still would have been really broken. Our round initially was going to be base 50 power. It would have doubled in power up to base 200, I want to say. Because later on, round would only go up to base 240 power, I believe, after just 2 uses. And its other effect of it pairing well with other Pokemon that use round as well, on the same side of the user. Alright, Clear Smog was going to be base 60 power, base 50. Clear Smog's more a utility move, so that makes sense. Skydrop being base 70 down to base 60. I like Skydrop, one of my personal favorite Pokemon moves, just because of how gimmicky it is, but still. Circle Throw was going to have 70 accuracy and perfect, or 70 power and perfect accuracy, but was later changed to 60 power and 90 accuracy. In my opinion, with it being a -6, actually, yeah, that was a move that forcibly switches your opponent, alright? Look, if Dragon Tail can be 70 power, then Circle Throw could be 70 power and 100 accuracy if Dragon Tail could also be 100 accuracy too. Incinerate was going to have 10 power points, but now was boosted to 15. Clash was going to originally have +2 and +1 priority, but was changed to 0. In my opinion, good choice. Since the only Pokemon this move is really usable on is like Prankster, Sableye, and Prankster Murkrow. Because otherwise, if you're not faster than your opponent, especially in singles, I mean, this move is straight up useless in singles. But in doubles, if you're not faster than your opponent, this move is basically useless. So I'm kind of glad they made that change so it's not just an instant, hey, you don't get to move button, you know? Alright, Frost Breath was base 45 power, but then changed to 40 base power. And the reason being this underpowered, since it does have guaranteed crit, and back then crits did double damage instead of 50% damage boost. If I remember correctly, in Gen 6, they changed the base power of this move to 60, if I remember correctly, to compensate for that change. Dragon Tail was base 60 power, or base 70 and base 100, but then later changed to 60 and 90 accuracy, or 60 power, 90 accuracy, which I'm pretty sure in later gens they buffed it right back to where it was before. Base 70 power and 100 accuracy. And then Hornleech was originally going to be base 60 power, likely because, if I remember correctly, it's basically the physical version of Giga Drain. Because before Generation 5, Giga Drain also used to have that same stats, base 60 power and base 100 accuracy with only 5 power points, before being buffed to base 75 in Gen 5. So they did the same thing with Hornleech, it looks like. And finally, a singular cut move, that being Melt. Alright, turns the opponent's type to Steel type, or a Steel type Pokemon to a normal type. Turns any Ice type Pokemon into Water types. Melt has become an XXX type move, whatever the hell that means. This is actually a really interesting move that I hope they bring back someday. This would be really cool. Decent Fire type move. I mean, I feel like it wouldn't be that useful in competitive play, but at the same time, you can do some pretty fun stuff with it. Take away your opponent's same type attack bonus, or give them a different weakness which compare decently well with certain Pokemon. All of that. There's quite a few things you can do. This move used to be in between Clash and Acrobatics in the move data sheet. It was removed in November 21st, in the November 21st revision. 12430. Less than a week after the first move data sheet was added. All entries below it were shifted upwards, with Acrobatics taking over its slot. I really hope they do bring back this move someday. This seems like a really neat move. Like, imagine you're fighting a Metagross and now it's a normal Steel type because of that, or just pure normal, I guess, at that. Well, it wouldn't lose its Psychic type, I don't think. But yeah. Like, I could see that being really good to take away its same type attack bonus so you take less damage from it, and also it'll have much less weaknesses because of it, too. Or much less resistances, I should say. And then turning Ice types to Water types, which I feel like would indirectly buff most Water types, or most Ice types. I mean, I guess that takes away their benefits from Hail, and later on in Snow. I mean, you could even use that in your partner Pokemon if you want to take away some of their weaknesses. Again, so many cool things you could do with this move. I hope they bring this back someday. Of all the things in this game that went unused, this move right over here would have been so cool. But oh well. Hope they go back to that idea one of these days. But anyways, next up, let's look at some maps, and the entire map screen is just this jumbled mess. I'm not entirely sure what any of this is. No links, no nothing. So I'm just going to scroll on past this. If y'all want to pause and read it, go on ahead. I mean, this is likely just the map data for each different area in the game, most likely. That's all it is. And the code that they would use to assign it. Alright, and the final thing that we'll look at for today is some unused concept art of many different characters. Alright, several character concepts can be found at Game Freak Docs, this huge code over here, starting with Hilda and Hilbert, our protagonists. Concept art of both Hilbert and Hilda. Hilda still is one of the best designs of any of the playable female Pokemon tags in my opinion. Hilbert's pretty cool too. Let's get a closer look at them. They're Pantone sheets, whatever that word is. Pantone sheets, I don't know. Next up, concept art of their back sprites, including Professor Juniper at the beginning of the game. Concept art of the in-battle back sprites of Hilbert, Hilda, and Professor Juniper. Next up, Bianca. Closer to her final design rather than one of her beta designs. Our concept art of Bianca and her Pantone sheets. Charon's just sitting there with his phone-looking Pokedex. He's scanning something, alright? Maybe that bag that's sitting there. Alright, Charon. Concept art of Charon. And Bianca's there too, I guess. I don't remember Bianca being that short. Or Charon being that tall, whichever. Alright, Professor Juniper and Cedric Juniper. Alright, let's sketch of Cedric and Professor Juniper once again, of the both of them. Though Professor Juniper has a slightly different color scheme. Most notably in the skirt area. And the shoes, too. Next up, Fennel, the cutest scientist ever. Concept art and sketch of her. Here's a closer look at that. Too bad she doesn't have much of a role in the game, same with the anime, where she only showed up in like one episode. Though I stayed in the game, one of Professor Juniper's old clients, or not clients, old, colleagues. That's the word I was looking for. Alright, here's another sheet of her. Alright, Nurse Joy's concept art. This looks closer to some of her later designs, like a design in the Pokemon Sword and Shield, really. Wouldn't be surprised if they reused this idea for that. Alright, Ingo and Emmett. Concept art of Ingo and Emmett and their katana sheets. Here's what that looks like. Alright, same concept art as above, but in lower quality with additional notes. Alright, next up, concept art of the gym leaders, with all very different designs and varying heights as well. Alright, a piece of concept art of the game's gym leaders, all in a group, dated September 18th, 2009. All of the leaders went through some kind of design change. Funny enough, that was even before Heart Still Silver came out. But anyways, design changes, ranging from very minor to a complete redesign. Chili, Silent, and Crest all look mostly the same aside from Chili and Crest having different hairdos. Clay's outfit got changed up a bit to be brighter and incorporate some teal and red colors. Drayden's brooch changed colors from red to green. Berg is much taller and has different hair. Eleonora is in a different outfit, has glasses, lacks her headband, and boasts completely different hair. Skyla's design is utterly different to the final, having darker skin, different hair, and a different outfit. Lisa lacks leggings and her headpiece are a bit different. Iris's outfit is a bit different, while her hair is much more thin. Bryson's outfit is much more like robes instead of a costume. And his mask covers his mouth instead of his eyes. Out of all of these designs, only Skyla and Lisa would actually be put into the game as battle sprites. Skyla's design, however, was slightly revised, changing her skin color and adding blue elements to her hair. All of these designs made it into the game as overall sprites during development except for Iris and Norris, as we've seen in previous episodes. And here's a closer look at all that. And most of these designs aren't even half bad though, but most of the final designs are much better. Drayden probably looks the closest how he looks in the final game here. And Clay's eyes are kind of funny looking. And I'm glad they changed Scout's design because she looks a little bit rough around the edges, let's just say. Alright, concept art of Chili, Silent, and Cress. And their tone sheets. However you say that word, I'm not entirely sure. An additional piece of concept art focusing exclusively on Silent. Here's a closer look at that. Alright, concept art of Lenore with and without her apron. Alright, and another one of her sheets. Alright, concept art for Berg. Alright, concept art for Elisa. Concept art for Clay next. Alright, concept art for Skyla next. Bryson. Even one without his mask on. He looks really angry here. Jordan's concept arts. With this secretary looking chick over here. Kinda like her design, actually. Kinda wish she made it into the final game. But oh well. And his really weird beard. This concept art of him talking with that big ass beard is a little weird looking, I'll be honest. One other thing about Jordan's design, he kind of looks German in my opinion. He looks very similar to Von Kaiser from Punch-Out in my opinion. And Iris's design over here. Kind of, and she's over here looking like she's giving the talk to the hand expression. Likely only done that just as a little pose to make just so they have her in different poses for designing her. Alright, next up the Elite Four over here was Chantal starting. Alright, next up Marshall. Alright, Grinsley. Thankfully, he's not blonde this time. And the best member of the Univin Elite Four, Caitlin. Alright, and concept art for Alder over here. Alright, Team Plasma Grunts, both male and female. Alright, so concept art for Gets Us next. And finally, N. with that being said, I think that'll be it for this edition to Unused Content in Games. Tune in next time for part 8, for where we will look at documents over here and the different descriptions for each of the notable characters in the game, as well as some other prototype content, such as the different builds of the game. Anyways, if y'all enjoyed this edition to Unused Content in Games and you want to see more, and you learned something new today, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And consider answering the question of the day. Of all the unused content we went over today's vid, which one of you would like to see in the final game and why? For me personally, that melt move, turning steel types to normal types and ice types to water types, would have been really cool in my opinion. You could have done a lot of really cool things with that. So I really wish that would be in the final game, and I hope we get a move like that at some point in a future Pokemon game. But anyways, with that being said, see y'all in part 8, where we look at even more of that unused content in this game. Thank you all for watching, and have a terrific day.